Scientists just confirmed what they've been tracking for days. A monster storm is approaching the United States, and it's not slowing down. In fact, it's getting stronger. This isn't just another weather event. This is one of the most powerful atmospheric systems meteorologists have seen in years, and millions of Americans are about to feel its wrath. What we're witnessing right now is a convergence of atmospheric conditions so rare and so devastating that meteorologists are using words they don't use often. They're calling it unprecedented. They're calling it a potential catastrophe. And as you listen to this, the storm system is already in motion, already gathering strength, already positioning itself to impact the lives of tens of millions of people across this nation. Let me take you back just a few days. Meteorologists first noticed something unusual in the atmospheric patterns. They were monitoring what appeared to be a routine weather system. But as the hours passed and more data came in, something became abundantly clear. This was no routine event. The atmospheric setup was changing. The dynamics were shifting. The conditions were becoming increasingly favorable for something truly dangerous to develop. The first sign came from the upper atmosphere. High-altitude winds, which meteorologists call jet streams, were positioning themselves in a way that would prove to be absolutely critical. These aren't gentle breezes floating through the sky. These are rivers of air moving at tremendous speeds, sometimes exceeding 100 miles per hour. They shape where weather systems go. They influence how strong they become. And right now, they're aligned in a way that's creating a superhighway for this monster storm to intensify dramatically. Then came the second factor: moisture. The Gulf of Mexico, that massive body of warm water sitting between the United States and Mexico, has been loading the atmosphere with an incredible amount of moisture. This moisture is like fuel for severe weather systems. It provides the energy they need to organize, to strengthen, to become truly dangerous. And right now, there's an abundant supply of that fuel waiting to be tapped. Weather models are showing moisture levels that are significantly above normal for this time of year. That's not good news for people in the storm's path. But wait, there's more. The third element of this dangerous recipe is temperature. Different air masses, at different temperatures, are colliding with each other. Warmer air from the south is rising, cooler air from the north is sinking. Where these two air masses meet, you create instability. You create an environment where the atmosphere literally wants to organize severe weather. The temperature contrast right now is dramatic, unusually dramatic, more dramatic than what we typically see even during peak severe weather season. AccuWeather's senior meteorologist Courtney Travis described it perfectly when she said this setup has the potential to produce the most widespread and impactful severe weather outbreak meteorologists have seen so far this year. Think about that for a moment. We're already 7 months into 2026. There have been numerous severe weather events. Tornadoes have touched down, hailstorms have caused damage, derechos with winds exceeding 70 miles per hour have ravaged communities. And yet, meteorologists are saying this upcoming event could surpass all of them combined in terms of its potential impact. The storm system itself is massive. We're not talking about something that will affect just one state or two states. The impacted area stretches like a corridor from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Great Lakes. That's thousands of miles of geography. That's dozens of cities. That's millions and millions of people who need to take this threat seriously. The 4-day window during which the most dangerous conditions are expected to unfold runs from Monday through late Thursday night. During this period, anyone living in the forecasted path needs to understand that dangerous weather is coming. The highest risk area has been identified for Tuesday. The National Weather Service issued a high-risk alert for parts of Texas, Missouri, Illinois, and Iowa. To understand how significant this is, you need to know that this is the first time such a high-priority warning has been issued since August of 2025. That's nearly a year ago. For months and months, there hasn't been a situation serious enough to warrant this level of alert. Until now. Until this monster storm started taking shape. The cities and metropolitan areas in the danger zone read like a who's who of major American population centers. Dallas, Texas, where millions of people call home. Oklahoma City, sitting right in the middle of Tornado Alley. St. Louis, Missouri, a major hub for the Midwest. Chicago, Illinois, the third largest city in the United States. Indianapolis, Indiana. All of these cities, along with countless smaller towns and rural areas, are now sitting within what meteorologists call the high-risk zone. Now, what does that mean for the people living in these areas? It means preparation. It means taking precautions. It means understanding the specific threats that this storm system is expected to bring. The most obvious threat is severe thunderstorms. But severe thunderstorms isn't just a simple term. It encompasses multiple hazards, all of which can be incredibly dangerous. First, there's the wind. Gusts exceeding 70 miles per hour are powerful enough to snap tree branches, overturn vehicles, rip roofing materials off buildings, shatter windows, and turn ordinary objects into lethal projectiles. Some of the more intense storms within this system could produce even higher gusts. Second, there's large hail. Hail, larger than golf balls or even softball-sized, can occur with storms of this magnitude, puncturing roofs, shattering skylights, destroying crops, and injuring people caught outside. Third, there's heavy rainfall and flash flooding. The atmospheric moisture surging from the Gulf of Mexico will produce torrential rain and significant flash flooding. The Texas Hill Country, devastated by catastrophic floods last summer, is particularly at risk. Flash flooding is deceptive and deadly, with just 6 inches of moving water capable of sweeping away vehicles. Flash flooding kills more people than any other weather-related hazard in America. But there's another threat that's worth considering: tornadoes. When you have high-altitude wind shear, abundant moisture, and strong instability all working together, you have an environment that can produce tornadoes. Not just a few scattered tornadoes, but numerous tornadoes, some of them potentially strong. When meteorologists issue a high-risk alert, they're essentially saying there's a significant probability that tornadoes will occur. Some of them could be violent. The rotation within storms can be intense. The updrafts can be powerful. And when a mesocyclone develops and descends to the ground, it becomes a tornado. Tornado season in the United States typically peaks in spring, particularly in April and May. But we're now in mid-July, we're well into summer. Tornadoes can certainly occur in summer, but they're less common than in spring. When meteorologists issue high-risk tornado alerts in summer, it gets people's attention because it's unusual, it's noteworthy. It indicates that the atmospheric setup is truly exceptional. The timing of this storm system is especially concerning because of something that happened just last week. Another severe weather outbreak, a different system, moved through parts of the central states and the Great Lakes region. That outbreak resulted in numerous severe thunderstorms. It produced significant damage, and tragically, it claimed 8 lives. The recovery from that event is still underway. People are still assessing damage. Emergency response teams are still working to help those who were affected. And now, just days after that devastation, another system is approaching. This creates a compounded problem. Communities that are still dealing with the aftermath of the previous outbreak now need to prepare for another one. Trees that were snapped or damaged by the first system are weakened and will be more susceptible to being uprooted by the next system. Power infrastructure that was damaged and is being repaired now faces another threat. People who are already stressed and traumatized from the previous event now face another layer of anxiety and worry. In some cases, the psychological impact can be just as significant as the physical impact. Meteorologist Courtney Travis from AccuWeather emphasized the importance of preparation. She noted that people in the threat zone for severe weather should make sure that storm shelters or designated safe rooms are ready. They should be stocked with emergency supplies. They should have enough room for all people and pets in case a tornado warning is issued. This is not hypothetical advice. This is guidance based on decades of experience dealing with severe weather situations. A designated safe room should be in an interior space on the lowest floor of a building. If you're in a house, that might be a basement. If you don't have a basement, an interior hallway or an interior room without windows is acceptable. If you're in an apartment building, an interior hallway away from windows is your best option. You need to stay away from windows because flying debris is one of the primary killers in tornado situations. Even small pieces of debris traveling at high speeds can be lethal. Emergency supplies should include water, at least 1 gallon per person per day for 3 days or more. Food that doesn't require cooking, like canned goods, granola bars, and crackers, are essential. You need a battery-powered radio, flashlight with extra batteries, a first aid kit, medications, important documents in a waterproof container, and pet supplies, if applicable. But beyond the immediate practical preparations, there's something else that's important. It's mental preparation. Understanding the threat helps reduce panic. Knowing what to expect helps people make better decisions. Knowing what to do helps people feel more in control of a situation that is inherently beyond their control. Now, let's talk about something else that's happening simultaneously with this severe weather outbreak. Something that's happening on the other side of the world in the tropical Pacific Ocean. Super Typhoon Bavi is rapidly intensifying as it approaches the Mariana Islands, including the U.S. territory of Guam and Commonwealth Islands like Rota, Tinian, and Saipan. The Western Pacific typhoon season is off to an extraordinary start in 2026. There have been 4 typhoons and 1 super typhoon recorded so far this year. And now there's another super typhoon in the process of developing. Bavi has sustained winds near 166 miles per hour, with gusts reaching 200 miles per hour. Some models are estimating that the storm could strengthen even further, with maximum winds potentially reaching between 175 and 184 miles per hour. To put this in perspective, sustained winds of 175 miles per hour puts a typhoon in the absolute top tier of tropical cyclones. On the Saffir-Simpson scale, which meteorologists use to categorize hurricanes and typhoons, this would be a Category 5 storm. Category 5 is the highest category. There is no Category 6. When a storm reaches this intensity, it causes catastrophic damage. Winds at this speed can strip bark from trees. They can reduce buildings to rubble. They can turn a landscape completely unrecognizable. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center, which is a Department of Defense operated facility specifically designed to track and forecast tropical cyclones in the Pacific, has issued official forecasts showing Bobby's winds topping 175 miles per hour as it approaches the Mariana Islands in the coming days. The National Weather Service in Guam issued a typhoon watch for the entirety of the Mariana Islands in anticipation of winds exceeding typhoon strength. The threats from a storm of this magnitude are severe. Wind speeds that high can cause structural damage beyond what most buildings can withstand. Flooding from storm surge is another major concern. Storm surge occurs when the intense low pressure at the center of the typhoon, combined with the strong winds, pushes the ocean water onto land. In some cases, storm surge can reach 10 to 20 feet in height. Imagine a wall of water that tall, crashing onto shore. It destroys everything in its path. What makes the situation particularly serious is that the Mariana Islands are still recovering from a previous typhoon. Super Typhoon Sinlaku made landfall in April of this year as a strong Category 4 equivalent typhoon. Sinlaku had sustained winds near 185 miles per hour. The storm killed 17 people and caused approximately $1.5 billion in damage to the northern Mariana Islands in Guam. Infrastructure that was damaged by Sinlaku is still being repaired. Now, potentially just 3 months later, another super typhoon of similar intensity is approaching the same region. The devastation is compounded. The recovery becomes exponentially more difficult. Communities don't have time to heal before they're hit again. People are emotionally exhausted from the previous disaster. Resources dedicated to recovery from the first storm now need to be redirected to emergency response and recovery from the second storm. It's a scenario that any community dreads. Now, let's connect the dots and understand the bigger picture. What's driving these extreme weather events? What's creating the conditions for these monster storms to develop? The answer, in large part, is something called the Monster El Niño of 2026. El Niño is a naturally occurring climate pattern in the tropical Pacific Ocean that recurs every 2 to 7 years. During El Niño conditions, trade winds weaken, ocean currents shift, and sea surface temperatures above normal. This might sound like a minor change in distant ocean conditions, but the impacts are global and profound. When El Niño becomes established, it reshapes weather worldwide. It alters atmospheric circulation patterns. It influences temperatures, rainfall, and storm tracks across continents. Different regions experience different impacts. Some regions see increased rainfall. Others experience drought. Some regions experience warmer than normal temperatures. Others are cooler. The El Niño that's currently developing in 2026 is being described as potentially one of the strongest in the historical record. The NOAA Climate Prediction Center is projecting that this event will be among the strongest in the historical record that they monitor. Forecasters from NOAA and GFDL believe the event will peak between November 2026 and January 2027, before gradually weakening later in the winter and spring. An atmospheric scientist named Michael Tippett from Columbia University told CNN that model projections are now approaching unprecedented levels. Think about that. Unprecedented. A word that meteorologists don't use lightly. When they say something is unprecedented, they're saying it's beyond what we've normally observed. The sea surface temperature anomalies, which is a scientific way of measuring how much warmer the ocean is compared to normal, are projected to potentially reach between 3 and 4 degrees Celsius above average in key monitoring regions. 3 to 4 degrees might not sound like much, but in the context of global climate and atmospheric dynamics, it's massive, it's significant. It's the kind of temperature anomaly that creates unusual and extreme weather patterns. This monster El Niño is expected to create a mega heat dome over the western United States. Areas that are already hot are going to become extraordinarily hot. Temperatures in some locations are already approaching 117 degrees Fahrenheit. That's dangerous, possibly lethal heat. Combined with the drought conditions that often accompany El Niño patterns, we're looking at potential wildfire threats that could be devastating. The impacts extend to agriculture, too. During strong El Niño events, many of the most important agricultural regions in the world experience drought. The global agricultural supply for key crops like soybeans, corn, rice, sugar, and palm oil is heavily concentrated geographically. The top 3 exporting countries for these crops account for 60 to 90% of global trade. If those regions experience drought related to the El Niño, global food production suffers. Prices rise. Food shortages become possible, particularly in developing nations that rely on imports. Rice-growing areas of India are already experiencing a dramatic drop in rainfall. The stage is being set for potential widespread global food shortages. We won't know the true severity until harvest time, but the warning signs are already visible. If we do witness significant food shortages, historically it's the poor who suffer the most. But let's bring this back to the immediate threat at hand. The monster storm system approaching the United States this week is, in part, a manifestation of these broader El Niño conditions. The unusual atmospheric setup that's creating the environment for this severe weather outbreak is connected to the way El Niño is reshaping global weather patterns. No way explains that El Niño tends to suppress Atlantic hurricane activity by increasing upper-level winds that disrupt storm formation. These same upper-level winds, however, are currently positioned in a way that's favoring intense storm development in the inland parts of North America. It's one of those complex atmospheric dynamics where what happens in one region has cascading effects in other regions. So we have this convergence of threats. We have an approaching severe weather outbreak that could produce the most widespread and impactful storms of the year. We have a super typhoon in the Pacific Ocean that could become one of the strongest storms of 2026. And we have a developing monster El Niño that's going to reshape weather patterns globally through the end of the year and into 2027. The question people naturally ask is, what does this mean for me personally? How will this affect my life? What should I do? First, if you live in the forecasted path of the severe weather outbreak, you need to take this seriously. Don't dismiss warnings. Don't think, well, the forecast has been wrong before, so maybe this won't be that bad. Yes, forecasts are sometimes wrong, but when meteorologists are this unified in their concerns, when they're using language like high risk and unprecedented, you need to listen. Check your home. Make sure your roof is in good condition. Make sure gutters and downspouts are clear and functioning. Make sure you have flashlights, batteries, water, and food. Make sure you know where your safe room is. If you don't have one, identify one. Have important documents in a waterproof container. Have medications and pet supplies on hand. Listen to local weather warnings and alerts. The National Weather Service issues tornado watches, tornado warnings, severe thunderstorm watches, and severe thunderstorm warnings. A watch means conditions are favorable for this type of weather to develop. A warning means it's occurring or is imminent. When a warning is issued, you need to take immediate action. Don't wait. Don't watch the storm. Get to shelter immediately. If you have family members or friends who live in the affected areas, reach out to them. Make sure they're aware of the threat. Make sure they've made preparations. Share this information. Help people understand the seriousness of the situation. If you live outside the immediate impact zone, recognize that severe weather can sometimes exceed forecast boundaries. A particularly strong storm could produce significant impacts in areas that weren't initially in the high-risk zone. Stay aware. Stay prepared. Have your own emergency supplies on hand. Looking ahead, we need to recognize that this is part of a pattern. 2026 is shaping up to be an exceptional year for extreme weather events. The combination of El Niño conditions, unusual atmospheric patterns, and climate change is creating an environment where extreme weather is becoming more common, more intense, and more impactful. The science is clear on this. Our climate is changing. Average global temperatures are rising. This additional heat in the atmosphere means more energy available for weather systems. Weather systems can become stronger, can intensify more rapidly, and can produce more moisture. We're seeing this play out in real time. The super typhoon Bavi in the Pacific, the monster El Niño reshaping global weather patterns, the monster storm approaching the United States. These aren't disconnected events. They're all part of a larger story about how our planet's climate and weather systems are evolving. Scientists have confirmed the monster storm is approaching. They've confirmed it's getting stronger, and they've confirmed that it represents a significant threat to millions of Americans. The forecasts are clear, the warnings are in place, the preparations need to begin immediately. What happens in the next few days will be significant. Communities will be tested. Emergency response teams will be mobilized. The resilience of Americans facing a natural disaster will be demonstrated. And the vast majority of people living in the path of this storm will make it through. They'll experience scary moments. They might experience damage to their homes or loss of property. They might lose power for extended periods. But with proper preparation and quick thinking, most people will get through this event safely. The storm will pass. The immediate threat will diminish. But the larger implications will linger. We'll assess the damage. We'll count the costs, both in terms of lives lost and economic impact. We'll rebuild and recover. And we'll remember that, back on this day, scientists confirmed a monster storm was approaching and millions of Americans heeded the warning and took action. The meteorological models that meteorologists use to forecast these storms are based on decades of observation and billions of data points. These aren't guesses. These aren't wild predictions. These are scientific forecasts based on atmospheric physics and observable data. When multiple independent models all suggest a similar outcome, and when experienced meteorologists all draw similar conclusions, we're looking at a situation where the science is pointing clearly in one direction. The Weather Prediction Center has been tracking the system for days. They've watched as the atmospheric ingredients have come together. They've observed the wind patterns aligning. They've measured the moisture surging northward from the Gulf of Mexico. They've calculated the temperature contrasts. And with each passing day, with each new model run, the indication of a major severe weather outbreak has become stronger and more definitive. This is not a drill. This is not an exaggeration designed to get attention. This is meteorologists, scientists who have dedicated their careers to understanding weather and protecting public safety, issuing urgent warnings because the situation genuinely warrants it. These are the same scientists who correctly forecast the previous severe weather outbreak last week that claimed 8 lives. They understand the risks, they understand the stakes, and they're saying this upcoming event could be even more significant. The human impacts of severe weather are profound and long-lasting. A tornado can destroy a home in seconds, erasing years of memories and possessions in an instant. A severe hailstorm can devastate crops that farmers have been nurturing for months. Flash flooding can carry away vehicles, destroy infrastructure, and create environmental hazards that take months to remediate. The economic costs are staggering, reaching into billions of dollars. But beyond the economic costs are the human costs. The grief of those who lose loved ones, the trauma of survivors who experience the full force of nature's fury, the struggles of those who spend months or years rebuilding their lives and their communities. Understanding these human impacts should motivate preparation. It should motivate people to take the warnings seriously. It should motivate communities to invest in early warning systems, improved building codes, and emergency response infrastructure. Because while we cannot prevent storms, we can reduce the impacts. We can save lives through preparation and quick response. The emergency management community across the United States is well aware of what's coming. Emergency operations centers are being activated. Emergency managers are reviewing their response plans. Mutual aid agreements are being activated so that resources from less affected areas can quickly move to areas experiencing the worst impacts. This coordinated response is vital because when a disaster strikes, the first response is local. Local emergency personnel are the first to arrive on scene. Local hospitals receive the injured. Local governments coordinate the overall response. The National Guard in affected states has likely already been alerted and is preparing for potential activation. The National Guard can provide critical support during disaster response. They can help with search and rescue operations. They can help with debris removal. They can provide security to prevent looting in damaged areas. They can assist with emergency sheltering for those displaced from their homes. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, has already been positioning resources in anticipation of this event. Pre-positioned generators can help communities that lose power. Pre-positioned water can help meet immediate hydration needs. Pre-positioned medical supplies can help emergency responders treat the injured. This advanced positioning, based on forecast information, is crucial to ensuring that help arrives quickly when it's needed most. Utility companies are also preparing. Power companies are positioning repair crews and equipment. They know that this storm will likely damage power lines. Some areas will likely lose power for extended periods. Having repair crews ready to deploy quickly can help minimize the duration of power outages and the impacts on affected communities. But beyond these institutional preparations, there's something even more important: individual and family preparations. This is where personal responsibility comes into play. No government agency can prepare for every individual household. Ultimately, people are responsible for taking the steps necessary to protect themselves and their families. This means going through your home and identifying potential hazards. Are there dead trees or tree branches hanging over your house that could fall during strong winds? These should be trimmed or removed before the storm arrives. Is your home's exterior in good condition? Are there loose shingles on the roof? Are there cracks in the foundation? These vulnerabilities should be addressed if possible before the storm. It means taking inventory of your emergency supplies. Do you have enough water? Enough food? Do you have a battery-powered radio? Do you have a first aid kit? Do you have medications? Have you charged all your devices, and do you have backup power for them? These preparations can mean the difference between uncomfortable inconvenience and genuine hardship during and after the storm. It means talking with your family about your disaster plan. Where will you shelter? How will you stay in contact if you get separated? What will you do if you need to evacuate? What route will you take? Where will you go? These conversations might feel uncomfortable or unnecessary when the sun is shining and the sky is clear. But during a crisis, having this plan already in place can help people make better decisions and stay safer. It means staying informed. Check weather forecasts regularly, listen to emergency broadcasts, read updates from the National Weather Service, download weather alert apps on your phone so you receive warnings in real time. Knowledge is power. The more you know about what's happening with the weather and what meteorologists are forecasting, the better equipped you are to make appropriate decisions. This is the reality we're facing. This is the weather challenge of 2026. This is why preparation matters. This is why listening to meteorologists matters. This is why taking storm warnings seriously matters. Because on the other side of this event, we want to be able to say that we did everything we could to stay safe, to protect our families, and to help our communities weather this storm that science has confirmed is coming.